Sort of response video to Fred, sort of, kind of, maybe. It's one of his older videos, so I'll post a link. You know, it's not going to be talk and respond kind of thing. I'm just going to talk on the subject. Another guy who made a video was this Garrett, I think. Anyway, and it was just the one phrase he used, you know, at the end, sort of talking about atheism and liberating us from this notion of original sin. And that sort of was the title, I think, of Fred's video, and sort of the subject at the end, I suppose. I don't know, really wasn't in there. But he was sort of just, he did a very good chronology of evolution. But I didn't think much of the ending, because he's just sort of, you know, implied that there's too much focus, from my philosophy point of view, on, you know, the suffering desire equation part of life, and that there's some other meritorious aspects to this evolution. I may respond to the original video, but I think the subject just needs to be pursuing, because there's certain phrases and certain ideas built into it that I just think are so, yeah, they just really need to be bashed over. I mean, we need answers to them. Sorry, I got a horrible cold. Really quite miserable. But anyway, it's beside the point. So I might make a lot of bad videos. So I can't do anything else. Too miserable. Anyway, where was I? All right. So anyway, the Dana guy ended the video with this idea of original sin. It's like this nasty imposition of religion, that they impose this idea, this concept on us. And how dare they? I don't know. Why did the Fred video stop? And that's sort of irritating. I just reload it, see what happens. Stupid YouTube. Anyway, it didn't reload. That's interesting. I hit the damn button. There's always something with this goddamn computer stuff. Not that you need this crap anyway. I better get this out of the way, and then it won't look as bad. Anyway, anyway. Okay, so I'm finally going to get to the video. That's no good either. Sloppy. I'm sorry. I should start over, but I'm not going to. Okay, so original sin. And you know, I sort of make the argument that the original sin metaphor is valid, unfortunately. I mean, yes, religion has it for a different reason, I think, but they might have realized it in a metaphorical sense, that life is this huge liability, our desire, our selfishness, that this is sort of the sin of the animal, the brokenness that's in the animal, and that, you know, we have to strive to somehow overcome that liability. And that's sort of my argument, is that there's something in the nature of our creation that is broken. The idea of consumption and reproduction is not a working mechanism. It's a completely, I mean, unregulated. It's just horror waiting to happen, and that's just the simple truth of it. It's not an immaculate conception. It's dirty conception. It's a bastard origin. And we have to take account for that, because that building block, as Fred would call it, throughout our evolution, these building blocks, these stages, these plateaus of sophistication or ability. I mean, the fact is, though, is that everything is built on that foundation. The lower floors do have to support the higher floors. So anywhere we're going to go, any way we're going to evolve, anything we're going to become, is still built on that fundamental mechanism. And I keep arguing back to the idea that this DNA molecule still does own us, that we're still owned by that crude bastard origins. We're still basically functioning as well-equipped microbes. You know, we have more tools than a microbe, but that's all they are. They're tools. We're better equipped to take on all kinds of different environments and new environments. I mean, in a sense, life did evolve from, you know, a very tiny thing into, you know, rather massive substances, and to take on new environments, to boldly go to the new environments that were made available and provided by its own existence. I mean, life created the new world, the new skin that it infected. You know, I mean, that's sort of the weird thing, is we create the food in our own petri dish, sort of. You know, it's that kind of cannibalism. It feeds on itself. And the underlying concept, the underlying chemistry, is this idea of taking an arrangement of matter and having it consume more matter and create a duplicate of its arrangement. And that's the basic mechanism, and it really there needs to be it has to be explained away, because that really still is the force behind it all, and it's not a good force. It's a parasitic, not malicious, but it can be very negative in its impact, in that it doesn't have any regulators, especially when sentience became involved. I mean, that's really the ball game. And Fred almost argues that this life thing might have had merit even if we didn't acquire sentience. Let's say we just somehow were able to switch that, skip that step, that somehow life would be on some sort of, would be going somewhere. It'd be a very interesting little weird piece of peanut butter. I mean, it'd be the idea of organisms, but there's no evidence, one, that you can get to those trickier stages of life form, beyond something that just has fancier eating tools. I mean, you don't really get a nervous system without sentience. I mean, it's sort of built into the idea of it, an intelligent nervous system, let me put it that way. And that might be a necessary reality, that you have to have a motivating mechanism for intelligence to function. You have to have a pain and pleasure kind of engine before intelligence can be developed, because maybe it's the only way that it can do this thing it needs to do the rational thing, which is to validate models, experiments that take place as modeling experiments. There's only it'd be hard for something without a feeling capacity to create the notion of right, wrong, accurate, inaccurate, valid, invalid. It wouldn't be as simple. But anyway, that's sort of a side issue. The bottom line is where is this going? I mean, there's this idea that we're going to go beyond this point, that there's some place we're going to go, and that there's some other, justifying accomplishment that lies ahead of us, that somehow is going to make all this crap seem like it wasn't just crap, it wasn't just waste, it wasn't just rats running in wheels or rats chasing cheese or all my other metaphors for the silly nature of it. And I guess the bottom line is, I'm going to argue, is that there hasn't even been a glimmer of what that would be. What is this next stage that we're going to go to? Clearly, intelligence only really functions as something that helps us build instruments, comforts, ways of satisfying desire. It doesn't build us some way out of the conscious dilemma of needing to be fed. And so I've argued that, to me, the ultimate end is just to create virtual worlds for our consciousness to live in, worlds that are where we're so much more capable than we are in this limited world, where we aren't vulnerable. We're vulnerable here. We can die, we can suffer, we can do a lot of things. In a virtual world, we can be protected against all these risk liabilities, and beyond that, we can physically be augmented in any imaginable way possible, without the great expense or complication of trying to engineer that physics in reality. And in some senses, obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to, we're not going to become transformers, and we're not going to be able to shrink ourselves to the size of an ant. But you can do that in a virtual world. You can go anywhere through virtual experience and have any kind of experience. And you can explore all kinds of worlds, and they can be perfectly constructed to suit your sensibilities. To the music can be perfect. The scenery can be magnificent. It can feed every part of what you're hungry for, or what you define as a symphony, what you define as a ballet, what you define as a perfect meal, what you define as a perfectly intriguing circumstance, a perfect seduction. All of those things can be perfected in a virtual world where the goal is to do what we are naturally built to do, which is to chase and to get, but to maximize it, to make the line between our desire and our satisfaction clean and straight and pure, and don't create this vulnerable first, and eliminate the absolute horror of getting eaten by a mountain lion and have to experience that, or the just the blights, the risks of real life, where it's just there's too easy to harm us. We're too vulnerable, So, but then what have we accomplished then? All we've basically done is taken some percentage of consciousness and put it in a pristine environment to wallow in its chase and its We've created the perfect heroin machine, like we create a wheel where you with each stroke the heroin you get just enough to just compel you to pull the next